Fresh from his trip to Israel, Joe Biden sat down to address the American people on Thursday night and lay out his case for a continuing engagement with the world. The US president drew a parallel between Russia's war in Ukraine and Hamas's attack on October 7th and said combating each was America's problem.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. I know these conflicts can seem far away, and it's natural to ask, why does this matter to America? So let me share with you why making sure Israel and Ukraine succeed is vital for America's national security.
If Biden sought to persuade, it was with good reason, as he said he would be asking Congress for more money to bolster aid to allies. Prominent Republicans have bridled at Biden's support for Ukraine, but with his opposition in disarray in Congress, Biden clearly felt he should strike while the iron was hot.
To put all that at risk, if we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it. That's why tomorrow I'm going to send to Congress an urgent budget request to fund America's national security needs, to support our critical partners, including Israel and Ukraine. It's a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security for generations.
With inflation and a high cost of living threatening to jeopardize Biden's chances of re-election, he evoked an episode from the past to encourage a new industrial drive.
Just as in World War II, today patriotic American workers are building the arsenal of democracy and serving the cause of freedom.
All ambitious long-term efforts, but whether they will win over a fractious public ahead of next year's election is another thing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. Thank you very much for tuning in. I apologize for the Rumble viewers. It's the same software, the same procedure, the same everything. I just started the live stream, and unfortunately, it's not showing this live stream on Rumble. I don't know why. So let's continue on YouTube. I already notified the audience on Rumble that they can join us on YouTube. So thank you very much, guys, for your patience and tuning in on YouTube. I will post this video later on Rumble when it's available for download on StreamYard. You watched this video of Biden, his statements, you heard him. Is there anything of what he said is believable? Do you really believe that the anything that Biden said is truthful? Do you believe that anything that he said about America's role in defending democracy around the world and these evil enemies of the United States who are trying to, take away the freedoms and take away the democracy of the Americans? It just, in my opinion, it sounds like 2001 once again, just after the 9/11 attacks, when all this talk was about they're attacking us because of our democracy, they're attacking us because they're jealous of our freedoms, etc., etc. And there is a very famous video of an American soldier. He's a veteran and he served in Iraq. And he collapsed crying when he was speaking about his role in destroying Iraq, and when he said they don't give two F's in Iraq or elsewhere about our freedoms in the United States. We were not there to spread freedom and we were not there to defend our freedoms. They were there to serve the empire. And lots of people, unfortunately, do not know that the United States is an empire, and they don't know that they do not know. This is the problem, right? That is why now Biden is allocating all these tens of billions of dollars to different destinations. I mean, there is more money for Israel, more money for Ukraine, and more money for Taiwan than for the securing the borders in the south. And we can see that the borders in the south of the United States are chaotic, and lots of people are coming and breaking through the borders and coming as illegals to the United States. This is not my concern. It's not. I'm not an American, and I'm not giving my opinion about it. I just believe in a sovereign country, and I don't think that anyone can come at any moment to any country and break through the borders. There are procedures, but there are also reasons for these people coming to the United States, right? And the topic of today's video is not that, but what I'm trying to say is that in the United States, you have a permanent state, you have the military industrial complex, you have the Wall Street, you have all these oligarchs who are benefiting from spending these billions in wars, whether it is in Ukraine or whether it is now in Palestine, Israel, or in the future, rest assured that there's going to be another conflict in Taiwan. And for the United States to understand how this empire functions, the United States has its vassal countries around the world and also proxies around the world and also its own military compounds and sites, right? United States has over 800 military sites around the world, and these military installations and bases are not sent abroad to defend democracy and human rights. They're sent to keep the order that the United States wants to keep the status quo or change the status quo, just to serve the interests of the United States. But when I say the United States, they're not really serving the American people. That's the problem. I discussed this yesterday with Nico House, that the majority of the Americans aren't really benefiting from these wars and spending all these tens of billions abroad. Most of the people are actually not only not benefiting, but also they are harmed by this, because the United States at the moment is printing lots of money, billions of money, in order to spend over these wars. And when you print all this money, this will create an inflation, and you can see that in the United States you have a situation where the economy is suffering from an inflation, and the Americans are paying from their pockets when you go to groceries, when you pay extra or when you pay extra taxes. This is being taken from your pocket in order to finance these wars, but the returns of these wars or the profits of these wars are not coming into the pocket of the Americans again. They're going to the pockets of these rich people, in the people, the military contractors, the bankers. So it's a really ridiculous situation in my opinion. And compared to Russia and China, I don't live in illusions, guys. Russia and China have their aspirations and they want to become superpowers. And in at one stage they will also want to become an empire, right? This is the circle of the history. But the current approach of the Russians and the Chinese is different from the Americans. They're not spending tens of billions of dollars around the world in order to finance wars because their economy is not based on that. For example, the Chinese model of the road and Silk and Road Initiative, it is based on investment in these countries, in the infrastructure of these countries, in order to build a network of countries. And the cooperation between these countries is based on economy. It's a mutual interest, it's a win-win situation, but the Chinese will win more, right? Because they are investing in these countries and they are pumping all these billions in these countries, and they're buying or renting some of the ports around the world. So the concept is similar. They're buying leverage and influence, but they're not destroying and killing people. That's the difference, right? So I just wanted to make this introduction before I get into the topic of today's video, which is again this horrific events unfolding in Palestine. And today, like, I come to the realization that Israel has no military strategy in Gaza. They are bombing for the sake of killing more Palestinians. And I personally watched closely the war in Syria and the war in Ukraine. And when you have, for example, an artillery shooting, you're shooting your artilleries in order to break the defensive lines of your enemy. But Hamas and Jihad, those parties do not have defensive lines. They don't have the, they're invisible, they're in the bunkers, they are in the tunnels. Therefore, all this bombing of the civilian infrastructure, buildings, killing more people is just for the sake of killing more people. This is becoming just pure hatred and just pure killing and murder of the Palestinian people. There are daily around 200 kids are dying in the Gaza Strip. Over 5,500 people died. Almost half of them are children. This is ridiculous. I don't understand what's the fucking strategy here just for bombing the people. So if you see what they're doing is basically completely disseminating, completely destroying the north, especially the northern part of the Gaza Strip, in order to push the people to the southern side and then to kick them out of the Gaza Strip to Egypt. And today I will show you how a think tank, an Israeli think tank with close ties to Benjamin Netanyahu, they are preaching the displacement of the Palestinians to Egypt, and how they think that they can fund their stay in Egypt and even buy them apartment just to get rid of these people from the Gaza Strip or from the territories of uh, their indigenous people or the territories of their ancestors. And bear in mind, 70% of the Gazans are already refugees from 1948 after the Nakba, after the displacement from their towns and cities in different parts of Palestine. So today we are in a situation where uh, the ground offensive of Israel is again delayed for the second time, and they just declared that they're going to increase the intensity of the bombing from the aerial bombing of the city. So at one hand, Netanyahu is under huge pressure that he has to do something concrete in order to crush Hamas, right? He ran for the last elections on the platform that he will bring security to the Israelis, and he failed miserably. Whether he allowed it to happen or he was fooled and into this attack on the Israeli settlements, in both cases, the Israeli people are asking this question that Netanyahu failed in his mission to bring peace and security for the Israelis. So, in my opinion, the days of Netanyahu are numbered, and not the days of Assad are numbered, just as they were predicting in 2000 since 2011. So, on one hand, there is a huge pressure on him now to go into the Gaza Strip to crush Hamas and Jihad and these militants. But at the same time, he also knows that if he goes to the Gaza Strip, he will suffer huge casualty rate. So that's also a big issue for him. If he goes and all these soldiers are dying there, then what is he going to answer to the families of these soldiers, right? And the second thing here is like, okay, don't go to the Gaza Strip. And if you don't go to the Gaza Strip, your enemies will interpret it as this is a victory for them. So in both cases, in my opinion, Netanyahu is in a big trouble, and this is the end of his career. It just depends how is this conflict is going to end. Is it going to end with a humiliating retreat and not to go into Gaza Strip, or going to the Gaza Strip and expanding this war into a regional war? I was watching a very short video of Scott Ritter, and I like to watch for Scott Ritter because Scott is very knowledgeable, in my opinion, and he was correct on the case of Ukraine on so many issues, and also on Syria. And I hosted him once. I will send him also an invitation soon, if he has time, to join us, and let's speak about a little bit Palestine, Syria, and the American aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean. I will definitely contact him. I have his Telegram. Let's see if he has time to join us on Syriana Analysis. But this is a video, 40 seconds. Why haven't the Israelis already invaded the Gaza Strip? Let's take a look.
If the Israelis go into Gaza, what are they going to do? Judge, I'm going to be just dead up straight with you. They're going to die. They're going to die in numbers that the Israelis haven't seen before. And the Israeli military knows it. Why do you think they haven't gone in yet? Because they know what's going to happen. Hamas is ready for them. Hamas is prepared for them. Hamas told Iran said, hey, look, if you guys are in trouble, we'll come in now. Hamas said, we got this, boss. We are ready for this. We don't need your help. We don't want your help. Hamas is luring the Israelis into a death trap in Gaza. And that's what's going to happen to the Israeli army when they go into Gaza. They're going to die.
So this is according to Scott Ritter. I agree with him. It's a trap. And by the way, the Rumble streaming started to work all of a sudden, and I just checked it, and some people are saying it works. So thank you guys also for notifying me in the comments below. So it's a trap for the Israelis to go. If they go, it's a trap. If they don't go, it's again a trap. It's a really big dilemma for the Israelis. You don't want to be in the place of Netanyahu, although he's just showing off that he's this strong leader. But the decision is very, very difficult now for him to take. And I will just give you here some analysis, because I was, after, let's say, watching this video of Scott Ritter, I just did some brainstorming, and I came to the realization that we're faced with a scenario. Let's suppose that the Israelis will go to the Gaza Strip, right? So they went to the Gaza Strip. Who are the players if Israel goes to the Gaza Strip? We have Hamas Jihad in the Gaza Strip. You have Hezbollah in southern Lebanon or in northern Israel. You have Syria and you have Iran. Okay. If the Israelis go to the Gaza Strip and they suffer huge casualties, which is going to happen most probably, and they will retreat after that, there is no need for Hezbollah to intervene in this conflict, right? Because they will also, there is this factor, guys. If you watch your mainstream media, you're not going to know these things, because they don't know anything, believe me, about Hezbollah or about Hamas. From the Hezbollah point of view, they're not going to intervene and steal the victory of Hamas. This is how they think. If you don't know these people, or if you don't follow how they think or what they say in their statements or in their interviews, you will not understand them, because they don't show you these things. From the Hezbollah point of view, if Hamas is capable of facing the Israeli side and they can inflict heavy damages or casualties among the Israelis, then there is no need for Hezbollah to intervene, because this is the war of the Palestinians, and they don't want to steal the victory of Hamas or Jihad or the Palestinians. This is from their point of view. But if the Israelis intervened in the Gaza Strip and they overpowered, or they were successful in their ground offensive against the Gaza Strip, and the Hamas and Jihad needed the Hezbollah intervention, rest assured that Hezbollah is going to intervene very quickly. They're ready and they're mobilized fully. And according to the latest reports, they say that the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, he is following the developments, and he is in the joint operations room with they call it an axis of resistance, right? So he's following, and if Hamas or Jihad they need the help of Hezbollah, rest assured, guys, whatever you saw and whatever you watched on the 6th, it was the 6th of October or the 7th of October of Hamas's attack on the settlements, it's going to be like a baby game for you. What Hamas did to the Israelis in the settlements, it's going to be a child game compared to what Hezbollah can do. And if you don't know how powerful is Hezbollah, you have to watch what they have done in Syria and how many cities and towns they have liberated from very strong armed groups. And those are very well armed and well trained and with strong ideology and also weaponry and at the same time readiness to die. In my opinion, most of the Israelis aren't ready to die for this conflict. This is just my opinion from my observation. In my opinion, Hezbollah has gained so much experience in urban warfare, and they are capable of occupying northern Israel, the current northern Israel, till Haifa. And if they occupy till Haifa, the quarter or one third of Israel will fall in the north. And then, in order to avoid that, the Israelis have to redirect their forces from the Gaza Strip to the north against the Hamas, against the Hezbollahs, and then they will get distracted by two fronts. And if this happens, guys, and if they are distracted and the Hezbollah and the Hamas are succeeding to conquer territories, Syrians are not going to sit side and watch this war. And this is not my wishful thinking. I'm just explaining to you, according to my understanding of these players, what they could do. And if this happens, Hezbollah and Hamas engage together in this conflict, Syrians are not going to sit aside. And according to reports coming from Syria, there are already 2 units ready for this. And there are also, I have heard, that the Iraqis came from Iraq to join this war if it starts in the Golan Heights. So it's going to be disaster for Israel. It's going to be disaster for Israel if they start this war in the Gaza Strip. In any way, it doesn't serve their interest. And that's why you can see that the Americans are sending their aircraft carriers. This is a threat to Syria and Iran and other players that if you intervene, we're going to hit you. And that's why, as I explained in the past 2 videos, Putin gave the order for his aerospace to fly the MiG-30s 24/7, carrying a Kinzhal hypersonic missile, which can hit these aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean between 5 to 6 minutes. So we have these players: Hamas, Jihad, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, and behind them they have Russia. If Russia will only intervene if Syria is being targeted by the Americans, okay? Not when Hezbollah is targeted or Hamas is targeted. So let's be careful what we explain here and what we say. They will only intervene if Syria is being targeted by the Americans and their interest is endangered in Syria. And also behind the Russians, today or yesterday, we've seen this report coming also. They say China's warships in the Middle East en route escort missions not involved in Israel. So there was the report that the Chinese have sent their warships to the Middle East, and everybody started to say, "Oh my God, this is about, of course, the conflict in Gaza and in the Middle East in general." And I still believe that is the case. I still believe that is the case, and this is, in my opinion, the Chinese are just testing the waters. They're testing the American reaction of sending warships to the Middle East. But the Chinese were very quick denying it, which personally I do not believe them. And they say China's deployment of warships in the Middle East is part of the country's routine escort mission and friendly visits on the region, not an interference in the current Israel-Palestine conflict, Chinese analysts said after some Western media outlets started hyping China's Navy deployment in the region. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in the U.S., Liu Pengyu, in a statement to Sputnik on Sunday, called for an end to the groundless hyping over the deployment of Chinese warships to the Middle East amid the Israel-Palestine conflict. According to the Chinese military online, the 44th Chinese Naval Escort Task Force, including the guided missile destroyer Zibo, the guided missile frigate Jingzhou, and the comprehensive replenishment ship Kiaduhu, arrived at whatever this is, Shuaich port in Kuwait as planned, blah, blah, blah. So, according to the Chinese, they didn't send these warships to the Middle East and to send a message, and it's not related to the conflict. Personally, I do not believe that. Even if this is just a routine tour, but their presence there with the satellite capabilities and technological capabilities, it indicates that at least the Chinese, even if they won't intervene in any conflict in the Middle East, but they're watching the developments and they want to see where is this heading toward, because for them they also have vital interests in the region, right? And recently they have brokered a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and accordingly now Iranians are coordinating with the Saudis of any step they are taking. The Abdullahian, the Iranian foreign minister, before he gave his famous this recent interview, he was in Saudi Arabia, and that's a good news for the region. The Iranians and the Saudis should cooperate, and it's in the interest of the region, in my opinion. It's just my dog, he's walking now behind me. And before I continue, guys, I would like to thank Garrett for his generous support, and also Leon. Hi, bro. I miss you. It's been a really long time. We haven't seen each other. We know each other from the days of Aleppo. Thank you, Leon, for your generous support, really. So this is from the alliance and the coalition that is not on the side of Israel, right? On the other side, you have the United States and the UK. In my opinion, those two countries are the only ones that are ready to wage in acts of hostilities against the enemies of Israel. And that's why, as I mentioned, they have aircraft carriers now in the Middle East, and also the Americans have secretly sent special forces to Israel in order to participate in any commando operations, they say. But in my opinion, the Americans are there as an advisory at the beginning, but they will send more troops, and they will definitely be integral part of any conflict. So the question here is, if you're an American, do you want any of your soldiers or your son, your brother, your uncle to die in Israel, for Israel? Or do you want these people to be in the United States? Because I mean, in the past years, I've seen so many Americans telling me America comes first, and they're still sticking to this logo. But this so-called anti-war or so-called conservatives who are so enthusiastic now about this war in Israel, but bothers me. You told us that America comes first, and you want to prioritize America, and you don't want to engage in conflicts abroad. What is the difference now between Ukraine and Israel? Why do you want to engage in this war now? If you have an explanation, I'm reading the comments. So this is from the other side. Now, we are also engaged in like this conflict. Just like any other conflict, there is a lot of propaganda, right, from both sides. Let's be honest. Wars are based on at some points lots of lies and misinformation and manipulation. And if you can defeat your enemy psychologically, you will defeat them physically, right? And in my opinion, Hamas did a smart move here. I'm not complimenting them for that, but it's just a smart move. They released 2 hostages. They have been holding them in the past 2 weeks because they are old in age, etc. But let's take a look of this video. It's definitely a propaganda video from Hamas, and they're showing to the world that they're humane and everything, and they haven't tortured this, or they're treating them in a good way. But when I say propaganda material, I mean that this video itself, that they're recording it so that they show the people, they are trying to influence people's public opinion. Let's take a look. So obviously this is the video they wanted to create it before they handed them to the Palestinian Red Cross, and they're giving them biscuits and they're giving them water, etc., and they're having some conversation. I don't know what language are they speaking here. I think the Hamas, they can speak some English, but not. Yeah, I mean, this water, etc., etc., of course it's part of the information warfare or propaganda warfare, right? But there is something interesting here. When they hand these two women to the this is the International Red Cross. Yeah, they're speaking Hebrew.
It's okay. Let's go. It's okay. Let's go. You go with
See
this one.
this, for example, this woman, she didn't have to do it, right? She didn't have to shake hands with them again. Like, she was kidnapped by them and she was a hostage, and then this handshake, it bothered the Israeli government and it bothered the propagandists from the Israeli side. Take a look again.
It's okay. Let's go. It's okay. Let's go.
Yeah,
You go with
this
one.
last, yeah.
You go with this lady. I'll go with the other one.
This video, in my opinion, it caused lots of problems for the Israeli public opinion and the Israeli propagandists. And this is a video. Yeah, they ask her, "Why did you shake hands?" She says, "Because they treated us nicely." Take a look.
Handed to the International Red Cross Committee. She took the hand of a Hamas gunman and she said, "Shalom."
The question is, why did you shake that Hamas activist hand when you crossed? Because they treated us very nicely. My mom is saying that they were very delicate and gentle with them and took care of all their needs. They seemed really prepared for it. They had concealed it for a long time, and they took care of all the needs that women need: shampoo, conditioner. Did they tell you anything about what was happening outside?
So I think this video, that's why when I say the Hamas side played very clever, because in the information warfare, they won here. And the Israelis cannot now. What is the justification now? How can the Israelis say that the Hamas side was brutal, etc.? And these hostages, for example, they're saying these things after they were released, not during their kidnapping, right? If you're kidnapped, you may have what is that called? Stockholm syndrome? I don't know, when you start to sympathize with your the people who captured you. But those were after they were released. So this was, in my opinion, a success for Hamas. But this CNN says that this released hostage, she said that she went through hell. And I went through these videos to watch if she said that. And to be honest with you, I didn't see. Didn't see that. I didn't hear her saying that. I don't know where did the CNN brought this information from. Probably true that I didn't hear, but I didn't personally. I looked personally a lot and I couldn't find that. Now, since we're speaking about propaganda, guys, I said this during when the war in Ukraine started, and I will say it again. The Western mainstream media or the establishment in the United States or the Israelis are very, very powerful in their propaganda machine, but they're not creative. I mean, how many times are we going to recycle this story? Now the president of Israel says that Hamas is developing chemical weapons. I mean, not even the most propagandized person in the world can believe that Hamas has the capabilities, the materials, the storage of developing chemical weapons. And what is the proof of that? Let's watch together first what the president of Israel has to say in this regard.
This is material which was found on the body of one of those sadistic villains. It's Al-Qaeda material, official Al-Qaeda material.
Guys, official Al-Qaeda material, and Hamas, they have written it in English, so better you believe this president.
We're dealing with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas. This is what we're dealing with. And in this material, there were instructions how to produce chemical weapons. It speaks about
and he's hiding it. Look,
arson, and it speaks about various chemicals that come out and produce chemical weapons. Simple as that.
The severing of medical supplies and electricity is having an incredibly profound effect on the
severing.
But it's having a very profound effect on the ability for those hospitals
But that's
to
part
operate.
of the distorted information. It was Hamas missiles which broke down the electricity infrastructure in Gaza. Nothing to do with us. Water, we supply only 7% of the water. It's fuel? Hamas operation. There is fuel for the humanitarian need. It's under UNRWA. We are following very closely the humanitarian situation on the hour. Most of Gaza is functioning. There are areas that are under battle. This is a real tragedy, but how does the world want? How does the world cope?
We can't say Gaza's functioning.
How does the world cope? First of all, a lot of distorted information comes out of Gaza.
No, but we do have a team on the ground. So we do trust, and we can't say that Gaza is a functioning territory.
But the problem is, of course, that part of the infrastructure and part of the aid is hijacked by Hamas. That's the issue. Guys, it's very easy to blame Israel. Let's just remember where we were, what happened, and how do we have the right to defend ourselves when a missile that flies 250 kilometers straight into Israel comes from people's living room. That's the situation we're faced with. No other nation is faced with that. And had any nation been faced with that, believe me, they...
Guys, when somebody says believe me, and you know, you see this his my God, the way they lie with a straight face, right, about this chemical weapon thing, for example. And this is a very funny video I found about this case, that this guy is mocking the president of Israel when he speaks about these chemical weapons.
This is material which was found on the body of one of those sadistic villains. It's Al-Qaeda material, official Al-Qaeda material. We're dealing with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas. This is what we're dealing with. And in this material, there were instructions how to produce chemical weapons. It speaks about...
This material was found? Are you sure it wasn't printed out? I'm not accusing you of anything, but this sure does look like material that was just, well...
Guys, this is, by the way, a real website. I will show you later that I also double-checked just to see that this is a cover of a book. What the president of Israel basically showed to the world as a proof and evidence, alleged evidence for Hamas developing chemical weapons, is actually a cover of a book. He took a cover of a book, printed it out, and is showing it as an evidence. And I will show you that you can't even buy the book. I will show you. Let's continue this video.
Printed out online. But you guys wouldn't do that, though. Israel wouldn't do that. No. And when you showed this blurred picture, I just had to double check it. I had to make sure that this wasn't printed out online. So you do your best to unblur it, and then you reverse image search it. And I came up with somebody else's PowerPoint, like slides discussing terrorism. This person's slides, Dr. James Forrest, where he discusses, what do you know, chemical weapons. But on slide 20, it has a similar image in the top left. When you compare it to this one, why wouldn't you want us to see what the evidence is? Is it because you printed it out? No. You guys would never do such a thing. In summary, this whole Group H chemical weapons thing, well, it's just more propaganda, atrocity propaganda. You make up a big lie so you can have an excuse to go and, well, commit more genocide. Why would Group H print out a cover of a book, just a cover of a book from 2010, and use that in 2023, just the cover of the book. They just have it randomly on them. Why? And they just mixed and matched it with Dr. Forrest's slides. What is the logic here? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't have to make any sense because the truth is not important. What they say is the truth. That's what we have to take it in consideration. So this is the book, guys. I checked it. It's a real book, and you can even buy it. It's called The Provisions of Jihad in Islam. It's in Arabic. You have even a PDF version, and you can scan this QR code if you want to buy this book. And he literally showed this book as the evidence of Hamas developing chemical weapons. Plus, he showed another slide from a professor teachings 10 years ago. Although he blurred it, he didn't want for the general public to see what they're doing, right? I mean, this is going on a very, very ridiculous direction. And one of the more, let's say, ridiculous propaganda that I've seen recently is on Fox News. And rest assured, guys, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, those are all propaganda outlets. And they each differ on different topics, different priorities, but they are all scaremongering, fear-mongering, pushing forwards, serving the establishment in the way that serves them. And this is now because you have this open border problem, right, that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Now Fox News is weighing in order to tell the American people that Hamas and Hezbollah are actually sending their terrorists to the United States because the borders are open. How much somebody can be retarded, stupid, like doesn't know anything about the Middle East, about geography, about ethnicities, about anything to make a claim like this? Can you imagine that there are even claims made by very unsmart people on Twitter? I don't want to use other words, and they say that the Hezbollah people are in Venezuela and they look like Venezuelans and they learn Spanish and they're coming to our borders. Do you even know anyone from Hezbollah? If you go to southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah is mostly located, if you check the people's face, let's say features, they they have usually colorful eyes, green or blue. They're whitish more than they're even brownish. It's very crazy how these people are ignorant, uneducated, don't know anything, and they're treating the like believe I lived in Lebanon for 3 years, right? And if you get me 10 people and one of them only is from southern Lebanon and the rest are from different parts of Lebanon, I can point my finger and I can tell you this guy is from southern Lebanon, okay? And he's likely from, if he's from Hezbollah, this is the guy from Hezbollah. I can assure you. And these guys are discussing on Fox News that Hezbollah and Hamas are sending their militants to the United States in order to commit terrorist attacks. And rest assured, if an attack happens in the United States, there is a high probability that it's a false flag attack, so that they push the country or convince the Americans to go to war for Israel and die for the Israelis, because the Americans do not want to go to this war. So they need something. They need false flag attack. They need some security event, something that can trigger emotions and convince the Americans to go to this war. Check this very stupid reportage.
Here at home. Hey, Peter.
Ainsley, the Intel arm of CBP is out with a new bulletin, and it has a very alarming headline. It says foreign fighters of Israel-Hamas conflict may be encountered at the southwest border.
Maybe.
Daily Caller got a copy of this material that was posted 3 days ago, and it's warning about fighters from Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad trying to exploit the porous southern border because, and part of the concern is that they can see the same things that everybody else sees. These numbers, a record 2.48 million encounters in a fiscal year, and among them, at least 172 people on the terror watch list. That is 172 who actually came face to face with law enforcement and didn't get away.
when the Border Patrol is so overwhelmed that most agents are no longer on patrol because they're dealing with this self-inflicted humanitarian crisis, that's when the fentanyl comes across and kills over 100,000 Americans. That's when the sex trafficking of women and children skyrocket, and that's when non-suspected terrorists will use that vulnerable border to get into this country.
President Biden did speak with Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, but he remains at the Rehoboth Beach House this morning. The plan is to leave for the White House around 10:30 to get back here for a Bidenomics event this afternoon. Ainsley?
All right, that's scary.
Yeah, that's scary, guys. And she just said scary and alarming, these words. It's just a spontaneous. Don't think it's about scaremongering and fear-mongering and spreading panic among the American people. It's just a spontaneous reportage, and the wordings are just spontaneous. They don't want you to be afraid. They're just warning you that Hezbollah is probably infiltrating the borders of the United States. And if anything happens in the United States, they're going to blame Hezbollah so that they can go after Hezbollah in the region, because up until this moment they don't need this false flag attack, right? But just in case Hezbollah gets involved in this war, then they will find the justification. They will do anything so that they convince the Americans to go to this war. That's why they're preparing the American public that, oh, they're infiltrating or probably infiltrating our borders, and if something happens, so it's them, and then we have to go to war. This is just 101 propaganda, and it's so childish that I don't understand if there is anyone who still believes this bullshit. But why are they doing all this? Because this is all distraction from the real goal. The real goal is ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians of Gaza. I mentioned this multiple times, guys, on this Syria, and now I'm going to support it with more evidence. And this is published on October 17th by the Miskov Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy. They published a position paper advocating for, quote, the relocation and final settlement of the entire Gaza population. The report advocates exploiting the current moment to accomplish a long-held Zionist goal of moving Palestinians off the land of historic Palestine. The report's subtitle makes it clear, quote, there is at the moment a unique and rare opportunity to evacuate the whole Gaza Strip in coordination with the Egyptian government. So this Miskov Institute is currently headed by former Netanyahu National Security Advisor Meir Ben Shabbat, who remains influential in Israeli security circles. So those are the main points, guys, of this paper by this think tank that has close ties to the Israeli government, as I mentioned. And they say, one, there is a need for an immediate viable plan for the resettlement and economic rehabilitation of the entire Arab population in the Gaza Strip, which sits well with the geopolitical interests of Israel, Egypt, USA, and Saudi Arabia. In 2017, it was reported that in Egypt there were 10 million available apartment units, of which half were built and half under construction. For example, in two of the biggest Cairo satellite cities, October 6 and Ramadan 10, there is an immense number of built and empty apartments under governmental and private ownership, as well as empty lots for building that would in total suffice the housing of about 6 million residents. So Palestinians are 2 million in Gaza. There are places for 6 million people in Cairo, and they're even mentioning these compounds where there are all these apartments. So who is going to fund this, right? Because these apartments they cost money. The average cost of a 3-room apartment of 95 square meters for an average Gaza family of five people in one of the two mentioned cities stands at $19,000. In calculation, the total population that resides in the Gaza Strip, which stands between 1.4 to 2 million people, it is possible to assess that the amount that would need to be transferred to Egypt in order to finance would be around 5 to 8 billion. So they're trying to bribe Egypt and pay Egypt 5 to 8 billion dollars so that Egypt receives these Palestinians, 2 million of them, and give them this housing. But who's going to finance it? Israel and the United States. An encouraging injection to the Egyptian economy at this magnitude would provide an enormous and immediate advantage to Egyptian President al-Sisi's regime. Such money sums compared to the Israeli economy and minuscule. The investment of a few billions of dollars, even if it's 20 or 30 billion, in order to solve the difficult issue, is an innovative, cheap, and viable solution. So they're ready to pay till $30 billion, and they consider it a very innovative, cheap, and viable solution. They want to ethnically cleanse people, and they pay billions of dollars for it just to get rid of the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Egypt. There is no doubt that in order for this plan to be enacted, many conditions need to exist in parallel. At the moment, these conditions exist, and it is unclear when such an opportunity will arise again, if at all. What do you think, guys, about this project? Do you think the Egyptian side will accept it? Do you think the Egyptian government, El-Sisi, is so desperate for money, or they're playing geopolitical game with the Israelis? Personally, I suspect that the Egyptians will accept it, although these papers say that it's very clear that they will accept it. Personally, I do not think that is the case. I truly do not think that is the case. There is so much attempt, guys, to from the Israeli side to tell the Europeans, not only the Americans, but also the Europeans, that this is also their war. And as I told you guys, there is a big portion of the Americans and the Europeans, they don't want to get involved in this war, and they don't want to help the Israelis in their mission of ethnic cleansing. It's declared. They are talking about it, right? And because of that, now Netanyahu is, again, the biggest psychopath manipulator in the world. He is manipulating the European public and the French public by telling them that if Hamas wins, the civilization in danger. And this war is not only our war, but it's also your war. Take a look.
Test for the West and for civilization is Hamas. If Hamas emerges victorious, we will all lose. Europe will be endangered. Everyone will be endangered. Civilization will be endangered. So if Hamas wins, if Hamas loses and is defeated, then the forces of civilization win. That is why this battle is not merely our own. It's Europe's battle. It's America's battle. It's civilization's battle. It's the battle for the heart and soul and the future of the Middle East and the Arab world.
So, guys, as you heard from the horse's mouth, this is not only war, the Israelis' war, this is Europe's war, this is America's war, because Israel cannot alone win this war. So they want to bring all their friends and their allies in this conflict, and they want to drag other countries into conflict in the Middle East. And unfortunately, I'm saying this, like I was today on Russia Today with Peter Lavelle. The episode will be broadcasted soon in a few days. I will let you know, guys, when. And I will also post it on YouTube and on Rumble anyways. I told him the Europeans just a few years ago, or a decade ago, 20 years ago, there was this always people in the Middle East, North Africa, or in the Middle East or West Asia in general, they used to distinguish between American policies and European policies because the Europeans used to pretend that they have a different approach, right, when it comes to the Palestinian case or the Iraq invasion and the other conflicts in the region. But they're no more pretending even that they have a different approach toward these conflicts in the region. Then it's very difficult now to distinguish between the European foreign policy approach and the American foreign policy approach. And this will create a backlash in the region, in my opinion. And backlash is going to be in a way that the people in the region, in the global south, they will have their grievances due to these policies, right? And these grievances are not going to be only against the Americans this time, but also against the Europeans. Unfortunately for the Europeans, but they're doing this with their own hands and their own tongues and with their own actions. And when I say the Europeans, these elites that they are in charge now of the foreign policy in France, in Germany, in Brussels, etc. And it's going to be, I think this is, there's no way back from this. And the people in the region, they know very well now who enabled this genocide and who enabled this ethnic cleansing and who enabled the killing of the babies in Palestine. So the people will not forget about that. I think the Europeans have lost their credibility completely. Everybody knew that the Americans are biased in their foreign policy approach, but the Europeans lost any chance to have any constructive role in the region. It's over. It's over for them. And they're the ones who are going to lose because Nobody is going to trust them in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Palestine, and these countries, right? But there are more Europeans are speaking against this war machine and against this um, unconditional killing and murdering the Palestinians. I found this guy actually is he's really emotional speaking about the people about these casualties in the Gaza Strip. He's from the UK, and he says why the world has become so ugly. I repeat the same question: why the world has become so ugly? Why are the people? Why is there so much death and misery? And for what purpose? And for who is benefiting from it? Right? Take a look.
Scenes of unimaginable horror. Hundreds dead in Gaza hospital strike. It's absolutely horrific. There's body parts, children, women, men, in civilians incinerated. Why is the world like that? Why are we like that? You saw devastation in Morocco, in Turkey, in earthquakes, in Libya. This is man-made. We did that. Who would do that? Hundreds killed sheltering in hospital as Israel denies an airstrike. Outrage at hospital attack. Can you imagine? Look at it. Mum holding a dead child. Hundreds die in huge blasts. It's unfathomable. This must end. This must end. Who's calling for a ceasefire? Biden heads for Israel, but Arab leaders meeting cancelled after Gaza hospital death. Joe Biden's going to Israel. The Arab leaders have said the meeting in Jordan is off after the hospital massacre. Who's calling for a ceasefire? What's our leaders doing? What's Rishi Sunak? He hasn't said anything. He's just retweeted James Cleverly saying, "Oh, we're going to have an investigation." What? Who's calling for a ceasefire? Not Keir Starmer. He was egging it on last week. Do they think hospital horror? Who's to blame? Lewis Goodall, no one knows for sure who bombed the hospital. We should be very cautious about attributing it. What we can say, it confirms that it should be obvious one way or another, civilian horror in a war in Gaza is guaranteed. What Lewis is trying to say is, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, guys. What's happening here is really a nightmare, and the politicians who are giving all the support, unconditional support, right, to Israel. I understand that it's your ally, but when you see all this deaths and destruction and the casualty rate, and also divide the casualty rate into how many underage kids, how many women, how many men, how many elderlies, 70% of them are between kids, women, and elderlies. The numbers are horrifying. And when you see these numbers and you go to Israel and you express your unconditional support, it's horrifying. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Germany, and I don't comment much about German politics because they come after me if I say something, right? I just want to say one thing, that the Foreign Ministry of Germany, they issued a statement on Twitter saying that Israel cares about the civilians in the Gaza Strip. This is what they said. This is horrifying. If you see the footage coming from the Gaza Strip and you say that, you're just telling the Israelis, go kill as much as you want. Nobody will stop you. It's horrendous. It's horrifying. I'm having stomach problems when I read these statements, and I don't want to say much about this case. As I told you, they will come after me. They will find me. They will probably send me to court. So I will stay cautious about this case, but soon, when the right circumstances come, I have so much things to say about this case. Finally, I just want to show you guys a short video of an Israeli journalist. His name is Gideon Levy, and I have read one of his articles to you in our one of the 2 live streamings on the Haaretz, and how he was criticizing Israel for its brutal policies against the Palestinians, oppressing them and putting them in ghettos and cages and open air prisons and everything. This is what he said. And this is his video. He says, I don't remember one occupation where the occupier presented himself as the victim. And the other day, I was also watching for this Egyptian comedian. He was also saying the same thing. Like he hasn't seen anyone, any victim that cages his opponent and keeps bombing them 24/7 and then plays a victim. This is again reiterated by the Israeli journalist, and I think everyone has to listen and just internalize what he says and think about it. Even if you disagree with him, think about it and be open-minded. For what the Israelis are doing there is unacceptable. And even if you support Israel, you need to criticize Israel for its unconditioned, it's unlimited killing, right? And as I told you at the beginning of this year, there is no more military strategy there. It's just bombing for the sake of killing people. Take a look.
The second very deep-rooted value is obviously the value of we, the victims, not only the biggest victims, but the only victims around. I know many occupations which were longer than Israeli occupation, than the Israeli occupation. Some were even more brutal, even though it's getting harder and harder to be more brutal than the Israeli occupation. I don't recall one occupation in which the occupier present himself as the victim. Not only the victim, the only victim. If to quote here the late Golda Meir, whom I quoted also last time, I know, but it is so unforgettable, I have to use it again. She once said that we will never forgive the Arabs for forcing us to kill their children. We are the victims. We are forced to kill their children. Poor us. And as the victim and the only victim in history, again, it enables us the rights to do whatever we want, and nobody is going to tell us what to do because we are the only victims. To this, there is a third very deep-rooted value, and this is the very deep belief. Again, everyone will deny it, but if you scratch under the skin of almost every Israeli, you'll find it there. The Palestinians are not equal human beings like us. They are not like us. They don't love their children like us. They don't love life like us. They were born to kill. They are cruel. They are sadists. They have no values, no manners. Look how they kill us. This is very, very deep-rooted in Israeli society, and maybe that's the key issue. Because as long as this continues, nothing will move. As long as most of the Israelis don't perceive the Palestinians as equal human beings, we are so much better than them. We are so much developed than them. And we are so much human than them.
Guys, I'm just checking now this quote, if it is accurate. And this is from the Goodreads, as you can see. She says, when peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons, but it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons. Peace will come when the Arabs will love their children more than they hate us. What do you think about this quote, guys? Do you think that the Arabs hate the Israelis more than they love their kids? Do you think that this quote is ridiculous? It's meaningful? Let me know your opinions, guys, in the comments below. And also, let me know what you think about this live streaming. It's been over 1 hour again. I'm very grateful and pleased to have you all in the chat, guys, and also discussing with each other respectfully. Thank you very much for tuning in today's live stream. And I will see you definitely tomorrow. I will try to bring a friend of mine for an interview tomorrow. Why the peace negotiations failed between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I will check if he has time tomorrow to speak with me. If not, I will do my own live streaming. I will also send a message to Scott Ritter. Let's see if he has time during the next 2 weeks. I'm sure you also would like to listen to his opinion in this regard. But until then, thank you very much for watching this episode. Please like this video, share it with your friends. And if you want to support my independent work, guys, there is, I didn't play this, but it's here. Patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. It costs you only $2 per month. It's a great help for me in order to continue and become fully independent journalist and continue bringing you content like this. And I will see you very soon.